My parents made me cancel my vacation, said money was tight. I believed them. But then I found the cruise tickets. I never said a word, but now, they regret everything. I was wiping down the counter and keeping an eye on my nephew when I spotted it. A thick envelope, half open, just sitting there like it was nothing. The logo jumped out at me first. Elegant gold lettering from one of those luxury cruise lines you only ever see in glossy travel ads. I paused, pulled out the papers. It took seconds to register what I was holding. A full itinerary, my parents, my brother, my sister, her husband, even their kids. A fully paid week-long cruise. My stomach twisted. I clutched the papers tighter, heart pounding in my ears. There had to be a mistake. They couldn't afford this. They told me they couldn't. 2 months ago, I canceled the first vacation I'd planned in years. An all-inclusive trip my best friends and I had been dreaming about for over 12 months. I'd scrimped and saved, worked double shifts, turned down every night out just to afford it. And then, my parents sat me down. Said they needed help. My sister was drowning. Childcare was expensive. She needed extra shifts, and they couldn't pay a sitter. And the money? It was bad. We all had to tighten belts. It's just not the time for any of us to take vacations, my mom said, eyes full of sympathy. We all have to make sacrifices. So I canceled. My friends went without me. They understood. Now I stood in that same kitchen, holding proof they'd lied straight to my face. Not only had they taken a vacation, they hadn't even told me. Not one person had slipped. Not even by accident. That morning, my brother had texted me asking for money to fix his car. My sister wanted to know if I could babysit next weekend. My mom had called the day before, just to chat. And yet, in 2 days, they'd all be sailing off into the sunset. I looked at the dates. They'd picked the exact time of year I could never get off work. That wasn't an accident. That was planning. Just in case I found out and dared to ask to come along. I heard her humming before I saw her, my mom, walking down the hall. I shoved the papers back into the envelope, stepped away just in time. "Oh, honey, thanks for watching him today," she said, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. "You're a lifesaver." I nodded. Couldn't trust myself to speak. She had no idea I knew. No guilt, no flicker of shame. I forced a smile. "No problem." She glanced at the clock. "Oh, I have to pick up a few things before—" She stopped herself mid-sentence. Just a blink too late. I waited. She cleared her throat, smiled. "Before dinner." I let her go without another word. In my family, fairness never lived here. I learned that early. When I was 6, I begged for dance lessons. My mom said we couldn't afford them. I understood. I was a kid, but I wasn't selfish. I let it go. A month later, my sister started horseback riding. Private lessons, every week. They called it an investment, said it was her passion. They never saw the difference. It was always like that. My siblings got what they dreamed of. I got reasons why I couldn't. When I was 12, I asked for a new bike. My brother got one for his birthday. A sleek blue mountain bike with thick tires and smooth brakes. When I asked again, my dad handed me his old one. Torn seat, wobbly handlebars, brakes that barely worked. "But it's still good," he said. "You don't want us wasting money, do you?" At 15, my class planned a trip to Washington, D.C. I wanted it more than anything. I saved every dime, babysitting, odd jobs, even skipped lunch some days to scrape together enough. A week before the deposit was due, my mom sat me down. "Honey, we just can't afford it right now," she said gently. "It's a lot of money." "Maybe next year," I nodded, swallowing the familiar sting of disappointment. I knew the script by then. A month later, my brother was posting photos from a ski trip with his friends, paid for entirely by our parents. I asked once, just once, why that was okay. Mom gave me a soft, tired smile. "Sweetheart, it's different. He really needed this. It's important for his social life." Right, because mine never mattered. After that, I stopped asking. By the time I got to college, I understood the unspoken rules. I was the dependable one, the self-sufficient one, the one who didn't need anything. My siblings got handouts. I got lectures about grit and hard work. My sister's wedding, my parents covered everything: venue, catering, dress, no expense spared. When I graduated, they gave me a card. Just a card, no check, no gift. Just hollow congratulations in black ink. My brother stumbled through his 20s, drowning in credit card debt, job losses, bad decisions, and every single time my parents caught him. When I finally asked why they never helped me the same way, my dad just shrugged. You're doing fine on your own. You don't need us like he does. But I did need them. I just never had the luxury of showing it. When I started working full-time, the roles flipped. They leaned on me, babysitting, chipping in for bills. Always needing, always taking. The vacations were just the final blow. It wasn't a one-time thing. I'd seen it happen before, plans made, trips discussed, excitement building. Then suddenly, something always came up. Money got tight. Someone needed help. My sister's kids had school. My brother had work. My parents had too many expenses. And just like that, the trip would vanish. So I believed them. I thought we all missed out together. But now, staring at those cruise tickets, it was obvious. The trips never disappeared. Only the ones that included me did. Every single time I was part of the plan, something went wrong. But when it was just them, suddenly, money wasn't a problem. I thought about everything I'd given up for them. The vacations I canceled. The friends I disappointed. The years I spent putting them first. And here they were, planning this behind my back, making sure I couldn't come, not even bothering with an excuse. I wasn't just excluded. I was erased. Something inside me shifted. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't even confront them. I just stopped. The first test came 2 days later. My sister called in a rush. Hey, can you watch the kids this weekend? Something came up at work. I really need the shift. Normally, I would have dropped everything, cleared my schedule, smiled and said yes. But this time, I didn't. I can't. Silence. What? I can't, I said again. I'm busy. She hesitated. But you never have plans on weekends. That hurt more than I expected. She wasn't even trying to be cruel, just stating what she thought was fact. I was always available. Until now. Sorry, I said, and hung up. The text came an hour later. Mom, your sister said you won't babysit. Are you okay? Me. Yeah, just busy. Mom, busy with what? I didn't answer. Let her sit in that silence. The next day, my brother called. Hey, random favor. Can you spot me like $100? Just until payday. I almost laughed. The same brother who had just come back from the cruise I was never invited to. The same brother they always rescued while telling me I didn't need saving. Sorry, I said. Money's tight. Silence. Oh, really? He sounded thrown, like the thought had never crossed his mind. I don't think I'd ever said no to him before. Yeah, I said. We all have to make sacrifices, right? The line went quiet. I could almost hear him trying to make sense of it. He mumbled something about figuring it out and hung up. It didn't take long for the alarm bells to ring. That night, my mom called, her voice unnaturally sweet. Hey, honey, is everything okay? You've been a little distant. I leaned back on my couch, staring at the ceiling. I'm fine, just focusing on work. Oh, good. Good. She hesitated. You know, we missed you this past week. I almost laughed. Missed me? The same people who'd gone out of their way to make sure I couldn't be there. That's funny, I said. I didn't even know you were gone. Silence, thick and telling. I let it linger, let it weigh on her. Anyway, I added, my voice light. Almost cheerful. Hope you had fun. I hung up before she could reply. The cracks spread quickly. My sister stumbled without me, paying for babysitters that ate up the money she was working extra shifts to earn. My brother had to manage his own finances for once, and the real world hit him fast and hard. And my parents, they weren't used to this version of me. The one who didn't answer every call, didn't rush over, didn't rescue anyone. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I just disappeared. And they felt it. I knew the exact moment the confusion turned to panic. My mom showed up at my door, unannounced, a rarity in itself. She stood there holding a bag of homemade food like a peace offering. Thought I'd bring you dinner, she said, smiling just a little too wide. I let her in, but I didn't fill the silence like I used to. I watched her fidget, her eyes scanning my apartment like she expected to find some visible reason for why I'd changed. Finally, she sighed. Hey, just tell me what's going on. I blinked. Nothing's going on. Jess, she set the bag on the counter. You've been different. You're not answering calls. You're avoiding your family. I'm not avoiding anyone, I said flatly. I've just been busy. Her lips tightened. Are you mad at me? I met her eyes and let the silence speak first. Why would I be mad? I asked, voice calm. Because I had to cancel my trip while you all went on a cruise without me. The color drained from her face. I had never seen her look guilty before. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Jess, it wasn't like that. Oh, I tilted my head. Then what was it like? She stumbled. We didn't think you'd want to go, and you're always so busy with work. We thought. That's interesting, I said, because you didn't even ask. She swallowed hard. Honey, it wasn't personal. It was, I said. It always is. Her mouth opened again, then stopped. I let her sit in it. No rescue, no easing the tension. And for the first time in my life, I didn't let her off the hook. I didn't soften, didn't backtrack. She squirmed, cycling through every familiar tactic. Concern, guilt, minimization. None of them landed. I wasn't playing anymore. Finally, she gave a strained laugh. Oh, Jess, don't be so dramatic. It was just a trip. I smiled, but not the way she expected. You're right, I said. And now it's just me being busy. Just me choosing to put my own life first. Nothing personal. Her jaw tightened. She wasn't used to being the one on the defensive. She tried to keep things light as she left, but her voice betrayed her, that nervous edge, uncertainty creeping in. She couldn't make sense of it. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't crying. I was just done. She must have called my dad on the way home, because the next day he showed up at my job. I spotted him through the glass, standing there with his hands stuffed in his pockets, like some lost soul. Classic. He'd never respected my boundaries, so why start now? I walked outside, but didn't stop. Kept heading straight for my car. Jess, he called, hurrying to catch up. Come on, don't be like this. Be like what? You're being unreasonable. Your mother's worried sick. I almost laughed, worried I finally figured it out. She said you think we left you out on purpose, he said. That's ridiculous. Is it? I stopped, turning to face him, leaned back against my car. You knew I couldn't take time off. You planned it during the one stretch of the year when I'm slammed. That wasn't an accident. He scoffed. So what? We're supposed to plan our entire lives around you? Just don't lie to me. That shut him up. For a second, anyway. He exhaled hard through his nose, shook his head like I was being irrational. Look, we didn't tell you because we knew how you'd react. I smiled coldly. Right, so the solution was to prove me right. He shifted, arms crossing defensively. You're blowing this out of proportion. You've always been so independent. We figured you wouldn't care about stuff like this. That part hit me in the gut. Not because it was true, but because that's the lie they'd always told themselves to sleep at night. I wasn't independent because I wanted to be. I was because I had no other choice. You know what's funny, I said, my voice steady. When you needed me, when you needed money or babysitting or someone to bail you out, you never thought I was too independent then. His face darkened. Jess. No, I snapped. You don't get to spin this. You don't get to stand here and pretend I'm the problem. You needed me my entire life. I needed you once, and you lied. I opened the car door. He took a step forward, like he wanted to stop me, but whatever he saw in my face made him freeze. I got in, shut the door, and didn't look back. But I wasn't finished. I knew them. I knew how they rewrote stories to protect themselves. And if I left any room for interpretation, they'd paint themselves as victims and me as dramatic. So I made it clear. I went home and blocked my sister, then my brother, then both my parents. Then finally, I quit the family group chat. It didn't take long. Less than a minute later, my mom was calling my work phone. I let it ring. Then came the email. Subject line, what are you doing? The body. This is childish. I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but we are still your family. Call me back. I deleted it. They weren't my family, not anymore. That choice wasn't mine. It had been theirs, made over and over again. I was just finally accepting it. What I didn't expect was how fast everything unraveled without me. At first, they pretended nothing had changed. Maybe they thought I just needed time to cool off. That guilt would drag me back, like it always did. But I didn't come back. I didn't answer. I didn't explain. And without me, things began to crack. Small things at first. My sister couldn't find a sitter, missed a few shifts. A few became more. The missed shifts became warnings. The warnings turned into fewer hours. Her income was cut in half. My brother, always a financial disaster, ran out of people to call. The loans I'd given him, never repaid. The safety net I used to be, gone. He thought our parents would catch him next, but they were barely keeping themselves afloat. Because the truth is, they'd always needed me more than they ever admitted. I'd never handed them cash directly, but I was always filling the gaps, covering bills when they came up short, picking up groceries, quietly paying for things before they even became problems. I'd been patching the holes in a sinking ship, one that was never really mine to begin with. Now that I was gone, the whole thing was going under fast. A week after I cut ties, my mom called my work phone. I let it ring to voicemail. Her message was eerily calm. "Jess, sweetheart, I know you're upset, but things are really difficult right now. Your sister is struggling. Your brother's having a hard time. We just need a little help getting through this rough patch. Call me back, okay?" I didn't. The next day, another voicemail. This one sharper, more brittle. "Jess, I don't understand what you're trying to prove. We're family. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I know you don't want to see us suffer." I ignored that one too. Then came the real panic, calls from unknown numbers, again and again. I finally picked up, already tired. "Hello?" A sharp inhale, then my sister's voice, tight, furious. "Are you seriously going to let Mom and Dad lose the house?" I blinked. "What?" "They're behind on their mortgage," she snapped. "They were helping me and Brandon when we needed it. And now they're screwed. They're literally weeks away from losing everything, Jess." Something inside me went cold. I'd known they were struggling, but this was catastrophic. They had gone on a luxury cruise just months ago, guilted me into canceling my own trip, told me we all needed to make sacrifices, and now they were weeks from foreclosure? "What do you expect me to do?" I asked, voice flat. "Oh my God, Jess, are you serious? Mom and Dad are going to be homeless. They need help." That word again, need. Just like I'd needed help when I was younger, when I put myself through school, when I juggled jobs, rent, stress, and silence, while they handed you and Brandon everything. Now that the ground was crumbling under their feet, now I was supposed to save them. "Jess," she pushed, trying again. "We're talking about the house, our house, the place we grew up in. You can't just—" "If I lost my job tomorrow," I interrupted. "If I couldn't pay rent, if I called you, begging for help, would you take me in?" Silence. A long, cold, empty silence. "Jess," she said, quieter now. "That's not—" "It is," I said. "And you know it." Another pause. Then the bite came back into her voice. "You're being so vindictive," she snapped. "We're supposed to be family." "We were supposed to be family when you all went on vacation and left me behind." "That's not the same thing. Goodbye, Lisa." I hung up, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No guilt, no second-guessing. They had made their choices. Now they were living with them. A few days later, my mom showed up at my apartment. I wasn't even surprised. I opened the door. She stood there, pale, eyes red and swollen, no smile left to fake. "Jess," she whispered, "we have nowhere else to go." The words fell between us like a confession. They had burned every bridge, every lifeline. And now, I was the last one standing. And I knew if I let them back in, if I helped them now, they'd never stop. They'd never change. And I would never be free. I gripped the door frame, took a breath. "I'm sorry," I said. "But I can't help you." Her lips quivered. "Jess, please?" "If I were the one standing here," I said gently, "would you let me in?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You're our daughter." I nodded. "And I was your daughter when you chose to leave me out." I stepped back and shut the door. I stood there, listening. I heard her cry. I heard her whisper my name. One more plea. And then, I heard her leave. I exhaled, slow, steady, feeling the weight lift from my chest. It was over. Was I wrong for not helping her? Leave your thoughts in the comments.